Actually, my talk isn't just called A Seat at the Table, it's actually called What I Never Knew I Needed. So you're in for a bit of a treat. I want to start with a question. When did you realise that life was unfair? Now for me, I was 17 years old. That might be a bit earlier or a bit later than what you were expecting. But I was getting ready to start my medicine application process. Now, I was in my second year of sixth form, and when you know that you want to apply to medicine, the process is quite long-winded. But I had finally gotten to the stage where I was confident in my decision to pursue my dream of becoming a doctor. I didn't really expect anything to stand in my way. Up until that point, I had tried my best to do things like they say you should. So do well in school, and also have a good behavioural record, respect the powers that be, and also try my hardest throughout education. But one of the most important parts of the medicine application process is making sure that you're being predicted the right grades. Medicine is a very, very competitive course to get into, and so you definitely need to have the right grades that meet the entry requirements. But it seemed as though the journey was about to end before it had even begun. One of my teachers didn't want to give me the grade that I needed, despite me proving my ability previously. Especially in my exams, I had done well in my first set of exams, and I took that as a sign that life was telling me I should do medicine, and I should give it a go. But when she didn't give me the grade that I needed, I was absolutely distraught. I was devastated. Now, I grew up in a Nigerian household. My parents are immigrants to this country, and they always emphasized the importance of a good education. And they always desired for their children to do better than they ever did. So when I received the news that I didn't have the predicted grades that I required, I knew that I had to make a choice. I had a decision to make. And that was to fight or not to fight. I knew that I had to choose to either fight for myself and the future that I had always dreamed of, or I could continue to allow decisions to be made on my behalf despite them not necessarily being in my best interest. What do you do? Well, the answer was quite obvious. I needed to fight for myself, to give myself a shot at becoming a doctor. And that decision to fight challenged every inch of my being, but it's a decision that I have never regretted. But I knew that I wasn't just fighting for myself in that moment, but I was fighting for students like myself who came from underrepresented backgrounds or who came from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, who had aspirations to study medicine and become doctors. I knew that I never wanted them to lack the resources or the support that they needed to pursue their career ambitions. And you can probably guess how the story ended. I'm a doctor now, and I'm very proud of that achievement. But my decision to fight didn't stop on that day. My decision to fight looked like me starting a blog, an online platform, at the age of 18, once I was in my first year of medical school, writing every week, trying to encourage young students from across the country who had aspirations to study medicine, telling them that they could do it, that there was support available, free resources. And fast forward to the age of 21, I found myself leading a national charity, supporting current and future doctors across the country. Now, my motivation never changed. I always wanted to do whatever I could to support both aspiring medics and also current medics going through that training process. And even though it wasn't always easy to continue to fight, I've never regretted that decision since. But sometimes they really do say that it's easy to fight for others than it is to fight for yourself. Now, life can be so unfair. We look at our world around us today and we see inequality. You don't have to go far on the street to see the homeless person sitting outside of the station every day on your way to work, or whether it's health inequalities affecting the poorest communities, or the lack of access to quality education across the world. Life is unequal. But what do we do about it? Now, it's so easy to feel far removed from these things. It's so easy to feel like, oh, it doesn't affect me, or this problem is bigger than me, there's nothing really that I can do. And we talk ourselves out of being part of that solution before we've even given it a go. But it's not until the time that it's on our doorstep, affecting the people that we know and we love, that we feel that something needs to be done. But again, we still find a way to talk ourselves out of it. Why? Imposter syndrome. Now, I'm sure many people have experienced this, that feeling of not deserving to be in a particular space, that feeling of, waiting to be found out that you're a fraud, constantly doubting your abilities and your capabilities, and thinking your experience doesn't really matter much. Well, the truth about imposter syndrome is that it's lies. These are lies that are propagated throughout your transition in life. But what's the best way to tackle imposter syndrome? What's the best way to address these lies? Well, I say address these lies with truth. So you might think, what can I do? I found something that is worth fighting for. I found something that I'm passionate about, and I really want to do something, but I'm not enough. I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, not realizing that you've counted yourself out before you've even begun. But the truth is, you are enough. How unrealistic is it to expect to start the way that you'd like the end result to be? Your experiences have shaped you right up until this very moment, and your value isn't attached to anything that you've done previously or anything that you're yet to do, but just at the mere fact that you are a human being. So I want you to remember that when imposter syndrome tells you you're not enough, you are enough. There's the opportunity to learn along the way. There's the opportunity to start now and get perfect later. You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. Now, another lie that imposter syndrome might tell you is that you don't have enough. You don't have enough access to the right resources, you don't have enough access to the right spaces or the right people. But the truth is, there are things to leverage at every stage of your life. Remember when you were younger and you couldn't wait to become an adult? You longed for the independence that it would bring, but fast forward to adulthood and you realise it's not quite everything that it cracked up to be. The bills, the responsibility, it's all a bit much. And then you become an adult and you miss the innocence of your youth. You miss the time that you had as a young person. But learning to use what you have, learning to use the little that you have access to can actually help prepare you for the times when you do have access to the right resources and you do have access to the right people and the right spaces, to the point where you will know how to leverage these resources in the best way to yield the most amount of impact. And then another lie that imposter syndrome might tell you is that you can't make a difference. What is one person in a world of billions of people? What impact can you make? But the truth is, you determine what success looks like to you. And even when thinking about it, sometimes our focus is so fixed on the larger goals that we have, the big things that we want to achieve in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, 20 years' time, that we're failing to realize that the progress that we're making in real time. Success is highly linked to what you value. So value your consistency, value your decision to show up every single day, to fight for something that you believe in. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize that you've actually made a difference. Not just in someone else's journey, but in your own too. So, why is having something to fight for everything that you never knew you needed? Well, first, it can change you. It can change the way you perceive yourself. Now, oftentimes, the thing standing in between us achieving the things that we say we want to do is really ourselves. We tell ourselves that, like I said, we're not enough, we don't have enough resources, or we won't really make a difference. But the truth is, you need to value your experiences. You need to value your life's journey. You need to value your voice so that you can confidently occupy a seat at that table. Now, another reason why you may never have realised that you really do need something to fight for is because it can challenge you. It can challenge your perception of the way things should be. They tell us when we're growing up, go through education and then go on to university and start your career in a particular industry and then work your way up the ladder.
Our next speaker is Olamide. Sorry, I messed up her name. I'm really sorry. I knew I was gonna mess it up, so I was saying it. I just stumbled. Sorry. It's Olamide, and she is an award-winning junior doctor, and she's gonna talk about her talk, A Seat at the Table.
As part of the experience, breakfast, lunch and a glass of Prosecco were included for those who attended. With new and engaging presentation already in the works, we hope TEDx events return in the near future. This is Julia Finnegan reporting for the University of Buckingham.